You're tuned in to Horror Slop, where the stories are rotting, truth is twisted, and sleep, forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the pit. It's gross, it's creepy, and honestly, it's kind of my vibe. Hope you like nightmares, because tonight's tale, it slithers.
Straight from the darkest corners of Reddit. Real stories, real fear, and just enough blood to stain your soul.
So at least grab your bed sheets, so grab a flashlight, and maybe a therapist.
This is Horror Slop. And now the first descent. One story to open the night. Just enough to crack the door and let something in.
Yeah, but only if you're offering them at double time. Right. Frank said, well, I have a bunch of double time for you if you want it. They said they'd need you for at least 2 weeks. They didn't give much details, but it sounds like you'll just be running 911s. Alright, sounds like fun. When are we leaving? As I packed up some clothes and toiletries, I got pretty excited about the trip. It's not every day that you get to practice your skills among a different population, in a big city, during a catastrophe. I mean, I was in no way glad the hurricane happened, but I was glad I'd be able to go help. I pulled up to the station about an hour later and John was already there stocking and checking out the ambulance. What's up, Jack? John was clearly way more stoked than I was. No, I'm the medic, this is my EMT partner, John. What do you mean? John's my partner, I'll need him to run calls. I said to the FEMA guy that never cared to introduce himself. You won't need a partner, you're not running any calls, grab your stuff out of the rig too, we'll be using it. Oh, and if you have any blankets or pillows in there, you may want to grab those too. What the fuck is going on? The only person I know is being sent home and I'm not going to be running calls. John and I cleared our stuff out of the ambulance while complaining about what bullshit this is. I watched him as he walked to the bus when FEMA dude yelled, "Hey! You coming? We don't have all day." There were a couple of other guys putting stuff in their tents. I looked over to the guy next to me and said, "Hey, what the fuck's going on around here?" "I'm Mark, we better go figure out what's going on." We both walked over to the briefing area and after a few minutes a different FEMA guy stood in front of us to tell us what's up, or so I hoped. "Alright everyone, my name is Robert Jones, I'm going to be your director while you're out here. I'm sure you're all wondering why you've been pulled from your ambulances. Well, we have enough medics to handle the 911 system, what we need now is people for body recovery detail, and that's going to be you. If any of you object to this assignment, feel free to grab your things and hop on one of the buses and transport will be arranged for you. Everyone else head over to the equipment area over there and you'll be fitted for your PPE. Oh yeah, thanks for coming out to help." Then he walked off. If I wasn't getting double time for all of this I probably would have peaced out. In hindsight I should have peaced out, but I didn't. I walked over to the equipment tent and got set up with a full hazmat suit. What the fuck did I sign up for? The next morning we geared up, hopped on some Humvees and headed off. I didn't see Mark, he must have left. We had a couple of guys from the National Guard with us that kind of filled us in. The National Guard had already gone through most of the houses to check for hazards and bodies and survivors. They would put markings on the houses to signify if it was clear of hazards and how many bodies were inside. We just had to retrieve the bodies, and in the process hope for survivors. I really had no idea how to respond to that. I walked into the first house having no idea what to expect. I'd ran calls on people that had been dead for a couple of weeks in their hot-ass apartment, decomposing, it's the worst fucking smell. But never someone that's been laying in water for a week and a half. Fuck, I forgot to bring Vicks. Rubbing some Vicks on your upper lip is one way to reduce the effects of the stench. Even through all of my gear and mask I could still smell it. Me and this guy Alan walked through the house. He looked in the kitchen, I looked in the bedrooms, then we found them, 2 bodies, both floating in the bathtub. "Alright man, I'll grab the top, you grab the bottom," I said to Alan. We developed a system of just grabbing arms, legs, heads and whatever else we could get individually, then trying to scoop out the other parts when we'd find dismembered ones. You try to pile a full set of body parts into a body bag. I'm sure we were mixing parts up all the time. Sometimes we'd come up an arm or a leg short, sometimes a head. If it was an arm or a leg, we'd assume the person had an amputation. With heads we'd try to look for a while, but who knows, maybe it floated off somewhere. We were all in shock. I'd lost track of days. I was maybe sleeping an hour or 2 each night. When running on such little sleep, I tend to go into an autopilot mode. I'd go out and collect body parts all day, get back and barely even remember what I did all day. That was until September 18th, or was it the 19th? It may have been the 16th, I don't remember. We loaded up and headed back into the disaster area. We'd been bagging parts for about 6 hours when I heard a baby crying in the next house. Wah. The baby. There a baby crying in the next house. A what? Where? 3. I got to the middle of the hallway and heard the crying even louder. 1. I heard the crying coming from the bathroom. I ran into the bathroom and saw the baby. She was floating prone in the bathtub, her arm was wrapped over the edge of the tub. This is the part that I see over and over. "Hey man, are you?" It's the guy I was with, Bob or Alan. I carried the parts one had, he grabbed everything else. We packed her into a body bag and the guy I was with told one of the soldiers that we should probably call it a day. We hopped in the Humvees and headed back. When we got back to camp, I showered, packed up all of my stuff and told the FEMA guy I was leaving. He pointed me towards the bus and I was gone. The whole flight home I couldn't stop thinking about her. I swear I heard her crying. I mean, I followed the cries straight to her. But she follows me every moment of every day, even 11 years later.
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
Am I going to die? The kid asked me as he was being rolled into the operating theater. Damien would be the surgeon, a specialist in polytrauma cases, and I'd assist. No sooner had we opened him up before we shared a look of disappointment. There was no chance in hell he'd survive through surgery. Despite our lack of faith, we tried our best, but after only half an hour on the table, his heart gave out. How was he still alive when he arrived? Damien asked. As I put the needle to his open abdomen, his body twitched for a moment. I retracted the needle in surprise, wondering what had caused a post-mortem spasm. He's not going under. The anesthesiologist yelled as he gave the kid a second dose of propofol. Of course, without a functioning heart, there'd be no way for the drug to flow through his veins, even as I tried my best to pump for him. After an hour of compressions, the chief of surgery had intervened, and ordered us to stop. At that point we caused more damage than we helped. None of us responded. We couldn't find any words to describe the horrific sight before us. Most of the staff had left due to the sight. We'd faced many challenges in our career, but nothing quite like this. I took a deep breath, doing my best to keep my composure. His eyes darted frantically around the room as he started to realize where he was. He tried to lift his neck, but due to the spinal fracture he was completely paralyzed. I can't move, I can't move. He cried. I walked closer, standing directly above him. "Brian, your heart isn't beating," I said. The chief of surgery, George, grabbed me by my shoulder and whispered into my ear. He sobbed quietly. "So, what's going to happen to me? I'm going to die, aren't I?" he asked. I didn't know what to say. I'd never been in any similar situation, so I just gave the only answer I thought might be of some comfort. "You're not alone, I'm staying here until the end." George had been quick to shut down the operating theater, and the Center for Disease Control had long since been alerted to our situation. We had nothing to do but to wait, and pray to any god that Brian wasn't contagious. I had already been exposed, so I examined Brian, checking for any chance of improving his situation. "Can you feel this?" I asked as I checked all his limbs. "Not a thing," he responded. "But, it hurts so much on the inside. Everywhere, please do something," he begged. Hours passed while we waited for someone to tell us what to do. Half the surgical staff had been put into quarantine, terrified that they might be infected. Finally, the CDC arrived on scene, fully geared in hazmat suits. They allowed us to roll Brian into his own space. A pre-operation room had been evacuated, so he could stay somewhat comfortable. The rest of us would be put into the surgical office while the situation was being assessed. We talked through the night. After the procedures were finished, I couldn't sleep, and I doubt Brian was physically capable of it. "Do they hurt?" "Then what?" "He has no functioning liver, his aorta is cut into pieces and his intestines shredded. Even if we got him a new heart, he'd never survive," George responded. "Just keep him company while you can." "Doctor!" Brian shouted. I rushed to his side. I can't see," he stuttered. I kept talking to him, but the inevitable truth was that if he kept decomposing, he'd soon lose all his senses, all the while being conscious to experience it. As horrible as it might sound, I begged that it might finally allow him to pass on. His hearing had deteriorated within minutes, going from impaired to deafness, before I could even begin to help. Brian kept screaming in terror and agony after I left. For each passing second his own body started digesting itself, and nothing we could do would take the pain away. By the morning, his screams had silenced. I barged into the room, much to the dismay of the agents. Brian was hooked up to hundreds of cables, monitoring his heart, brain, muscles, and vital values. Of course, his heart showed no activity, and the decay had progressed to shut down all his muscles. He had quieted down not because the pain was gone, but because he wasn't able to scream anymore. The only part of his body still working was his brain. "Get him out of here," one of the men demanded. "You don't have to worry about it being contagious, we'll lift the quarantine in a moment," he said. "What about Brian, what will happen to him?" Brian was still alive. Blind, deaf and dumb, he had to suffer in loneliness, unable to die. "How long does he have to suffer?" I asked. "We'll know more when we move him to our specialized facility." The senior CDC agent demanded that his colleague kept quiet before they could tell me anything else. As soon as the quarantine was lifted, I headed home to write up my letter of resignation. I had a well-connected contact within the CDC, but upon trying to get more information, he claimed no such case had even been presented to them, that no one had ever been admitted to their facility under the name of Brian Dawson. About a month later, a lawyer, accompanied by a doctor, showed up at my door with a bunch of documents, all regarding doctor-patient confidentiality. The lawyer looked tired, worked down to the bone, as if he'd made many such trips before. He asked me to sign the documents, and to never speak of this again, saying I'd lose my medical license if I did. Not that it mattered to me, I'm done in that field for good. I just hope someone will stay with when it happens.
That last one tasted like fear and poor decisions. Let's see what the next bite stirs. Hope you're hungry.
It was the sound of my son's voice that woke me. What is it, mate? What's going on? What do you mean? What time is it? No. I mean, yes, but it wasn't in a nightmare that I saw the thing, Dad, that was after I woke up and If I'm honest, I only asked the question to try and calm Matty down. Help him get his thoughts in order. I didn't really need to ask it, though, because I already knew the answer. The poor kid's been having the same bad dream ever since me and his mum split up. Ever since she moved out a couple of months back. Grace left me for some rich guy she works with, and she took our son with her. Stuck me with the dog in an empty house. I suppose I should count myself lucky I still have those, but if I'm honest, it's hard to see a silver lining at the moment. And it's especially hard when I see the toll the whole thing is taking on Matty. The kid started wetting the bed again. Hadn't done it in years, but now Grace says it's almost a nightly thing. He'll wake in the early hours, sometimes screaming, and his sheets will be soaked through. Grace isn't exaggerating, either. The poor kid's done the same thing almost every weekend he's been to visit me. Sodden pajamas, cries in the night. Bags under his eyes at breakfast. When I ask HM about it, he always says the same thing, too, that he's been having bad dreams. The same bad dreams. A nightmare where he's lying in his bed, trapped, and the devil is standing outside his room. Tapping on the window, trying to get in. His mother and I broke up, and now the kid sees fucking Satan whenever he shuts his eyes. Like he's in hell. I'm no therapist, but I don't need a qualification to know how badly we've fucked him up. To him, the world really is ending. It took me a moment, but then I got there. The pet camera. That had to be it. A month or so after Grace and I split, in an effort to cheer Matty up on one of his weekend visits, I bought a little camera for the kitchen. One you can link up to an app on your phone. The camera sits in a little tower on the floor, and the idea is you can tune into it to keep an eye on what your pet is up to. Our chocolate lab, Bella, is about the only thing that can still bring a smile to Matty's face these days, so I figured he'd like to be able to check up on her. Watch her snuffling around in my kitchen, even when he's at his mum's new place. Speak to her through the mic. The little tower even stores dog treats inside it, which you can fire out of a little launcher by touching a button on your phone screen. Matty loves it. Obviously it hadn't worked, though, and I thought I knew why. The night vision mode on that app is creepy. Everything looks odd. The picture is all gray and green, like in a horror film. No wonder it had made the kid even more spooked than he already was. Look, mate. I tried to speak slowly, and make my voice as reassuring as possible. I'm sure it's probably nothing. I'm guessing you mean you saw something on Bella's pet camera, right? You saw something on your phone just now? Matty nodded his head. Right, okay. Well, trust me, I've looked at the app at night before, too, and I'm not surprised it freaked you out. Everything looks all shadowy and green, right? Like some creepy Twilight world. And if you saw Bella down there, her eyes were probably shining in a weird way, and... No. Matty's voice cut across mine. Bella was asleep, Dad. She was in her basket. My son glanced away from me, in the direction of the open bedroom door. Out towards the moonlit landing beyond. When he next spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. It wasn't Bella's eyes, and it wasn't the weird light. It was the shadow, Dad. I saw a shadow go past the camera. Like something had moved in front of it and blocked the view. Backslash. The stairs creaked softly below my feet. I crept down them as slowly as I could, willing them not to make a sound. It didn't work, the wood's old, and noisy. Even in bare feet I couldn't keep my steps silent. With these thoughts still running through my head, I reached the bottom of the staircase. Paused and strained my ears. The house around me was silent. No sound from Maddie upstairs, and no sound from the kitchen at the end of the hallway. If Bella had knocked something over, she'd obviously settled back down again now. She wasn't making a peep. I thought about switching on the downstairs light, then thought better of it. Somehow it didn't feel like the right thing to do. Even though the door to the kitchen was shut, any light I switched on would spill straight beneath the doorway. If anyone was in the kitchen, they'd know I was coming. The voice was right, and I knew it. But nevertheless, I still felt my hands tightening around the baseball bat as I started along the hallway. Just a little. Just to be on the safe side. "So why don't you then?" whispered the voice in my mind. "Stop fucking around and get it done, so you can go back to bed." Something was wrong in the kitchen. I knew that straight away. Something was wrong, but at first I didn't know what it was. I could hardly see a thing. Weak street light shone through the windows at the back of the house, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to push the darkness away. It was enough for me to make out shapes, though. Objects hiding in the shadows. I could see the outline of the fridge on my left, humming away softly, and beyond it the little dining table. On the floor by that table was a chair on its side, and a thought, that must have been what the crashing sound was, flashed quickly across my mind. It must have been Bella, after all, I told myself. She must have knocked over the chair, and Bella. The thought of my dog was what triggered the first realization. The first realization of what was wrong. Whenever I walk into the kitchen normally, Bella is there to greet me. She's always there to greet me. Even if she's not ready and waiting on the other side, the first sound I hear when I open the door is her claws scrabbling against the kitchen tiles. Only now, standing in the kitchen doorway, I couldn't hear her. I couldn't hear anything. And a moment later, as my eyes adjusted to the kitchen's darkness, I saw why. The back door was standing open. Wide open. The darkness beyond it stared back at me like an eye. "Don't. Stay away." I let out a yelp and spun round. Maddie stood in the moonlit hallway behind me, his pajamas hanging off him like a sheet. His eyes were wide with terror. As I stared at him he lifted his arm, and pointed a trembling finger in Bella's direction. I could feel fear filling me up then, something close to dread, and because I didn't know what to do or say next I did the thing that was most automatic to me, I flicked on the kitchen light. The room instantly filled with a yellow glow. It should have helped. It should have put a stop to the terror building in my chest. It should have ended the nonsense right then and there. When you're scared in the dark, turning on the light is supposed to make everything better. It's supposed to banish the fear, and the unknown, and the shadows. That was bad, but it wasn't the worst thing.
Whew, that one gave me chills. But hey, we're just getting started. The next one's sharper. You'll see.
It was discovered 25 miles off the coast of Maine by a lobster fisherman. The tip of a rusted rung ladder, patinated and crusted with barnacles, jutting up through the ocean's glassy skin. That's where I came in. Not that it doesn't matter, it does. But if I talk about what I did, who I am, and why I'm here, I'd no doubt wake up on a trap door with a noose around my neck and treason charges being read to me by a guy in a starched uniform. I figure there's a damned good chance that might happen anyway. Still, I'm compelled to document this because people deserve to know what I saw. I'm in a military hospital right now, laid up in my own private suite. I'm trying to heal, but without rest it's proving impossible. I figure getting this out of my system might help. I hope it will, at least. But what do they say in Shawshank? Hope is a dangerous thing. That aside, I was thankful there wasn't going to be a 60-pound oxygen tank misaligning my spine. The Iron Man was equipped with an electrolysis filter which converted ocean water into breathable oxygen. So, as I stood on the hem of a small Navy vessel, also experimental, don't even ask, looking at the first few rungs of the ocean ladder which sat 20 feet off the starboard, I wondered if this was my last taste of fresh air. I smiled, but behind my smile were nerves, raw, tingling nerves. I think she saw, because her hand landed on my shoulder. "You'll do fine, Jones." A nearby tech asked me if I was ready. I nodded, and the bulky submersible's helmet descended me like a meteor. There was a POV camera which fed them my perspective as well, so they could monitor and record my descent, which had started an hour ago. It never much bothered me, until the climb. Now I'll never touch ocean water again. "You good, Jones?" Matilda's voice in my ear. "Yeah, Han, I'm hunky-fucking-dory. My deltoids are screaming." I felt a smile creasing my face. The budget we got, they use models for that kind of thing. "They say you're closing in on 500 meters, Bradley said." Jesus. Already? "How's breathing?" Matilda asked. I smiled at the concern in her voice. Looked up at the little black eye on the top right of the visor, a camera pointing down at me. But this was no time for screwing around, and my visor was filled with numerical readings. On the left side sat a little map detailing the ladder and my position, a red dot on it. I had barely made a dent. "Just fine, darling." The tether wouldn't be a problem there, the pulley was built to eat through rocks, and had been satisfyingly crunching through barnacles the whole way down. "Once you hit 1,000 meters. Bradley's voice. "You guys picked that number out of a hat. The deeper you go, the greater the pressure bearing down on you is. Makes it easier to control." "Shit. I must have skipped that day in school." I joked. "Partly." Matilda chuckled. I smiled again, even though I hadn't been joking. "Closing in on 7:50 m, Laika," Matilda said, calling me that goddamn dog. "You've got charm, that's gotta be worth something," Matilda said, a smile in her voice. Bradley groaned. "God, you guys make me sick." Matilda laughed. "Dinner first." "Where?" Wham! An ugly deep-sea fish with a mouth of fangs went whizzing by my head. I barked a pathetic yelp and jerked back, nearly losing my grip on the ladder. "Deep sea life." "Your go for slide," Bradley said. "Wish me luck, kids." "Luck," Bradley and Matilda said in chorus. By the time I did see any markings, I was too far gone for anyone to care. I stopped. Not sure what I was looking at. A strange symbol etched directly into the middle of the rung in front of me. No reply. Bradley, distress in his voice, "Buddy. You getting us?" "Just fine. Can you hear me?" I felt panic squeezing at my lungs. I was growing concerned. "Jones, you're not coming through." A low hum built in my ears and then silence. No voices. Nothing. My helmet basked in the glow of the flickering screen. I had lost contact with the world above. Okay. Fuck it. I was going back up. None of this was worth a damn if I didn't have my crew watching my back. I fumbled out an underwater camera stashed in the pouch on my chest, snapped a photo of the symbol, and began the 10-foot climb back up to the pulley box. Not sure what I'd seen. It had only been there for an instant, etched in the beam of my floodlights. My breath was shallow, cold in my helmet. When my light hit them, they broke apart, darting off into the darkness in a cacophony of shrill chitters. I looked up and saw the pulley box, 5 rungs away. The button taunting me. Or maybe I was already past the point of saving. I didn't wait, I climbed. 4 rungs. 3. I looked to my left as a mermaid shot toward me, its hooked appendages clawing at my suit. I grunted and threw up a defensive arm. A razor shredded through my flesh. Blood plumed out of my ruined arm. I cried out. My suit beeped, screaming warnings in my ear. The fabric instantly sucked together, automatically sealing the breach as the mermaid flew off, and in came another. The horrible twisted face of the mermaid filled my visor. It had torn me off the ladder. I was winning. Then I wasn't. It was like being caught in a trash compactor, a dozen of these things crushing in on me. I screamed. Flailed. Fought for my life. I was alone. Completely alone. Floating through the water. I assessed the damage. My suit was mostly okay, except for my arm. Blood plumed through the fabric, funneled out and into the ocean. So water wasn't flooding my helmet. Yet. It very well could be soon. There was a crack in my visor. I quickly reeled myself in, closing in on the ladder and the pulley box, which was my last and final hope. It was close to breaking off. I moved slowly, surely, reeling myself in on the cable which rattled the box with each pull. I was lassoing the excess cable around my elbow as I went. Fingertips skimming the rung ladder. That's when I saw the shark. It was a shark. The biggest living thing I'd ever seen in my whole life. Its mouth. I couldn't bear to think what might be in its mouth. Oh my God. But that didn't seem to be enough. Oh my fucking God. It filled my horizon. Moving closer. Grabbed a rung. Started to pull myself up. When the pulley box broke free of the outer rail, my hand slipped. My other hand shot out, grasped the ladder, and then a rush of water blew me away. The shark was passing. Propelled downward by the force of the shark's movement, displacing impossible tons of liquid as it swam. I flailed. Grunted. Screamed. The readings on my visor still flashing warnings. At some point I stopped, realizing they were long gone. And, to them, so was I. Left to die, a prisoner of the ocean. After a while, still sinking, I blacked out. Pillars of rock, spires of stone, the husks of incredible mausoleums and colosseums rose around me, greenish in their eon-old patina. It was an impossible sun, a green ball of light, pulsing and bubbling with heat, hovering off in the distance, bathing these alien depths in ethereal light. I cinched it tight with a Velcro strap, and looked around. There was nothing but dead buildings stretching endlessly. I found neither. I walked for a while. I slept some. I awoke and walked more. I saw 100-foot effigies of a multi-headed, dragon-like beast with a multitude of clawed legs and a variety of gills spread out across its form. Among them were other, smaller statues of the beast rolled into a ball. Sometimes, after staring at the green sun for hours, I thought I could decipher the outline of the fetal beast wrapped in on itself. Pulsing with life. Waiting to be born. Eventually, my mind slipped away from me. I heard voices. Matilda's. Bradley's. Sometimes I spoke to them. I died. I was brought back to life on a lobster boat. I looked up at the real world. I could see in her eyes that she didn't believe me. I wouldn't believe me. Military man after military man came to visit me, higher-ups in crisp uniforms weighed down by medals. I was interviewed until my head spun. I learned it was never recovered. Whether they didn't believe me or didn't want to wasn't entirely clear, had my scar to back up my story, and my time spent missing. All I know is that at some point or another I was declared insane and ordered to a stint of convalescence. It's dread. Dread at what might become of the world if that thing ever rises to reclaim its kingdom. I've come to the end of my tale, and I still don't feel any better. Every time I close my eyes I see that green sun. I see it pulsing and flickering with life. And now I know for certain it's an egg.
Anyway, let's lighten the mood with something fun and... Nah, just kidding. It gets worse. Hit it.
My uncle had Brain Bubbles by the Cold People. Brian performed deep-sea dives between 1969 to 71, then again from 1980 to 81. We don't know much about his life between those two periods, but we do know that he was stationed at a training facility somewhere in the Arctic Circle, probably Greenland or Canada. During that time, he only visited his home in Arizona for 6 weeks per year, and was forbidden from doing all kinds of weird things. He was not allowed to purchase office supplies or typewriters, could not spend money at all except with a checkbook issued to him by his employer, could not go into a bank for any reason, could not handle cash, could not go to large gatherings or drink alcohol, etc. They wouldn't even let him smoke cigarettes. He was forbidden to write anything down and therefore would never handle a pencil, couldn't talk about his job, and refused to even touch a phone, with one exception. Brian had to call a phone number every 6 hours, regardless of the time of day. He would wake up in the middle of the night to make the call, which always pissed off his wife. Whenever he made that call, he always spoke casually, as if talking to an old friend, and had conversations that never amounted to more than idle chit-chat. I only heard these calls once in my life, and only in retrospect did I realize that they were heavily coded. What he was actually saying, we will never know. Even when someone called for Brian, he wouldn't take the phone, he would only touch it or speak if he dialed the number. I have never seen such a paranoid person in my life, but in my young age, I found his behavior harmless and amusing. One night during that visit, Brian snapped. I don't know what caused it, but he had a massive freakout and started acting like he was on hard drugs. In the middle of a normal conversation on the couch, he started shrieking about how he was sick of all the games and didn't want to be a gerbil anymore. To my mother's horror, he lunged at me and tried to strangle me. He kept screaming to my mom that he was going to twist the head off, show you all the circuits, and went on and on about how there were cameras in my eyes and microphones in my ears. He bit me, and when he saw that I bled, he snapped out of the episode and burst into tears. My mom tried to call 911 from the house phone, but it wouldn't connect. She frantically dialed the number on his barren fridge, and a woman answered. My mom told her that Brian was acting crazy, and said she needed police and an ambulance. The woman told my mom that she'd phone Brian's doctor immediately, and that everyone should just sit tight. I refused to go to the hospital anyway. I'm a lifelong emetophobe and hospitals make me nauseous. In less than an hour, a man showed up at the door. He called himself Dr. S. The doctor was dressed in ordinary slacks and a button-down shirt, and had a clean shave. I remember noticing the roughness of his hands when he shook mine. He was big, but too well-spoken to be some bruiser. I have trouble explaining what I mean, but the plainness of his appearance and the calm of his demeanor felt very menacing to me, like he was about to murder every person in the house, Patrick Bateman style. The thing I remember most about him, however, was that he carried the acrid stench of chemicals, as if he'd been varnishing wood or something. The doctor had a quiet conversation with my uncle on the back patio, and then he politely excused himself and left. He told my mom and I that Brian is going to be fine, he just needs a bit of rest. I'll order a prescription and you can pick it up for him tomorrow. When my mother asked if it was dangerous to be alone with Brian, the doctor just laughed and said, "Not anymore. I promise." He squeezed my shoulder and walked away. Brian immediately seemed better after his meeting with the doctor. He apologized to me, and ate dinner with us. He was in much higher spirits, like he'd been relieved of every burden he carried. My mom and I slept in the guest room with the door locked that night, simply because we had no idea what to expect from him. Brian was like his precious light switches, on or off, and nothing in between. But in the middle of the night, I woke up to my mother shouting. The house was dark, the patio door was wide open, and Brian was gone. He didn't take anything with him, not his shoes or his checkbook or watch. His car still sat in the garage, and keys on the counter. What is your earliest memory of him? The interrogation left us baffled. I was really confused by all of this, but my mother was downright mortified. No matter what answers she gave, they always doubted her, and told her she must be wrong, and gave some ridiculous explanation as to why. On the other hand, they never questioned a single thing I said. I still don't understand what the point of all that was. In it, Brian was standing way out in the desert somewhere. He looked a few years younger, and appeared to have not slept in days. He described the nature of his work to my mom, and some of the things he'd seen and done. I pieced together everything I know about him from this tape and some conversations between my mom and Brian's ex-wife. In the years after Brian's disappearance, strange men visited me once in a while, always asking about Brian. They found me in random places and always asked random questions. They were always polite, but never identified themselves. No matter where my mom and I moved, they found us. One time, a substitute teacher showed up to my high school biology class in senior year and gave the standard lecture, but at the end of the day, he asked me if I had any relatives who worked in the government, and if I could remember what my uncle's favorite color was. On another occasion in college, my then girlfriend / now fiancé and I went to a bar for a friend's birthday, and the bartender kept trying to serve me alcohol. I don't drink, and then asked me if I'd ever consider moving to Phoenix. He told me his buddy Brian used to live out there, and asked me if I'd ever been scuba diving. At the end of the night, he asked how my mother was doing, and used her full name. Most recently, while jogging the forest trail near my house in California, a guy on a bicycle stopped me and told me I looked just like a guy he once knew, Brian, a dude he met in the Navy. He mentioned that they lost touch, and said, last I heard, he was out living, in the desert or something, far away from the ocean. He hated the ocean. I replied sarcastically that he probably went to Phoenix, and the guy's expression went cold as a dead fish. He said, that's right. He's happier there, I'm sure of it. Then the man rode off. The one thing all these people had in common was that they reeked of chemicals, just like Dr. S. Brian's ex-wife Jill once told me, "Your uncle had brain bubbles," and told me that the crazy things he'd say were the result of brain damage from diving. The mixture of gases, pressure, and tight spaces, coupled with other stressors of the job, could certainly do real harm to a person's mind. But then again, Jill also worked in the government. That's how they met, and after Brian disappeared, she acted like she barely remembered him at all. It was almost as though she wanted me to dismiss him as a nut job. And come to think of it, she always smelled like chemicals too.
Alright, quick break before our next story. Let's check in with our resident spooky dude. Hey, you ever smile, or is your face just stuck that way?
I smiled once. The sky bled. A child vanished. Never again.
Okay, drama. Maybe next time just try a dad joke.
Knock, knock. They never made it to the door.
Wow. Fine, stay moody. Anyways, back to the darkness. This next one's got teeth.
LASIK surgery fixed more than just my eyesight, by Rickndickendacken 123. One day when I was working out and my glasses got knocked down and shattered, I decided it was time for a LASIK surgery. After weeks of grueling research online, examinations and finally the surgery, I got my new eyes. That was until 2 weeks later when I ran into a random person on the street who had red stains from bullets all over his shirt. There were dozens of bullet holes in him, but he seemed unfazed by the whole thing. I asked him if he needed me to call 911, but he just dismissed me and left. Later that day I saw him in the news. Apparently he was shot and killed during an armed robbery. A week ago my wife suggested we spend the weekend in her parents' lodge outside town. She said we could make some barbecue and spend quality time together, just the two of us. She and I had grown a little distant in the past few months due to her working overtime and hardly being home, so this was a great opportunity to rekindle. "Is everything alright, honey?" my wife asked, and I nodded, forcing a smile. I looked at my reflection in the mirror again and saw blood coming down from the place where the fire poker had been embedded in my temple.
You feel that? That weird pressure in the room? Yeah, that's the algorithm. It knows you're watching, and it gets real cranky when you don't feed it. A simple ritual helps. Click the little thumbs up, tap subscribe, say its name 3 times into your phone mic. Kidding, probably.
Engagement appeases the darkness. You know what to do.
Good, human. Now, back to the horror.
I am currently writing this on encrypted Wi-Fi from an undisclosed but safe location. I have had a change of careers following the events of the tale I am about to share with you now. I hope that people thinking about becoming prison guards read my story and reconsider any future life choices they will look back on as a mistake. "Shut the door," he said as he looked up at me from his desk after I entered. Those words sealed it in my mind, how much hot water I was in for some sort of infraction I was not aware of yet. I nodded and sealed the entranceway. He demanded I take a seat, so I did. "That sounds ideal," I said as my mind swam in the possibilities of how much profit he offered. "There are only 2 things we ask of you. One is that you cannot tell anybody about your new position. 2 is you locate somewhere else. There's a prison in the Arctic, and that is where your life will be for the next 365 days. I agreed. A few things jumped out at me when I first laid eyes on the populace there. They all had wounds on their faces, and they spoke a strange guttural language I was unfamiliar with. Why do they talk in such a bizarre tongue? I asked myself as I would walk down the blocks. The new warden I worked under had the last name of Buckley. He had noticeable scar tissue beneath his eyes. His attitude towards me at the beginning was hardly welcoming. If anything, he acted as though I was a burden. He seemed to resent me due to the mere possibility of having to train me on things. One evening, Buckley ordered me to do a cell extraction. "I'm not allowed to tell you what these scumbags have accomplished to wind up here," Buckley said. "He started his career in crime by cannibalizing his sister, though. Tonight, our only goal is to get him moved to the hole. He's proven himself to be way too dangerous to share a space with anyone." The doors of each cell were closer to that of an insane asylum than a prison. They were complete barriers that you could not see through. It was me and 3 other guards who were about to deal with this high-profile detainee. Upon walking in, the first thing I saw was Aluko sitting upright on his cot. I noticed he was huge, at least 6'8" and 320 pounds of pure muscle. His skin cracked all over. His face had the normal scarring that I associated with most people in the place. "I'm going to need you to stand up and put your hands behind your back," I said. "Show me respect and I'll show you the same," I continued. "You won't have handcuffs on you for long if you cooperate." "You are not better than me," Aluko said. His voice had a baritone quality, which I expected from a man of his size. What I did not was how weird it sounded. It was as though 4 or 5 people were chanting the words in unison. "You shot at someone in broad daylight when you were in a gang years ago," Aluko said. "It took 10 years for the paranoia to go away. The fear of the cops coming to arrest you for a potential murder before you became a low-grade one yourself. To this day, you don't know if any innocent civilians got caught in the crossfire." We had to restrain his huge arms and placed the metal bracelets on his wrists. He laughed all the while. "He had an insight into my past that no one has," I said as a bitter taste filled my mouth. "Well, that's unfortunate. Means you lied to the oral board when you got into the position you're in now. You shouldn't lie to your employers. Better to do the job assigned. Don't worry about things above your pay grade. I hope we're not exposed to dangers we weren't warned about. I'll have to find a way to get the word out." "You've proven your point," he said as he pushed on my chest. "Now get off of me. I don't want to give the signal to one of my buddies in the next tower. He has a modded Remington 700 pointed at you. I respect you for your bravery. Most people wouldn't be willing to do that to me, especially someone beneath me in rank. Tell you what, I'll shed a little bit of light on what kind of place this is for you. And if I ever find out you told anyone, you'll wish you would have died at birth." I felt the adrenaline start to wear off. As my energy lowered, I nodded, thereby giving tacit agreement to his new offer. I looked to my left and saw the sniper he was referring to. It occurred to me that if he wanted to take action against me, he could have had me executed right then and there. We followed the chain-link fence to another facility that had coded key access. After we put in the correct digits, he swung the door open. We made our way down a hallway that did not seem modern. There were lit torches on the walls. The flooring was pallid cobblestone. The priest pointed to his left. When I shifted my eyes in that direction, I did not immediately notice the presence of a fourth person in the room. Buckley turned to me. "What is going on here?" I asked. I had the irresistible urge to run screaming in the other direction. I knew I could not take my chances out in the harshest cold, but a part of me was willing to at least try. Edit, here is part 2.
You're still tuned to Horror Slop. Frequency unknown. Stories endless. Let's spin the next nightmare.
I went hunting alone every day. The first time, my family was impressed by my ability. The second time, my foster mother muffled cried at the poor ducky. The third, my foster father begged me to give what I hunted to someone else. Until the day my intuition, no, my instincts, told me to keep talking to the guy after he told me his conditions of payment. I will inherit some money, he wrote, but the thing is, I used to have a brother. He's dead now. No kids. But I talked to my attorney and he told me his widow will get half of my money. So I want to eliminate her. Sure, just send me her info, I replied, for the first time. Because I knew this story. I didn't want to be paranoid and think it was me, I just felt sorry for the poor woman and maybe would fuck up with the guy. But it was me. My brother-in-law, who was constantly helped by me and my husband after losing everything in gambling over and over, who ruined our store and I never said a thing, wanted to kill me. No, worse than that, he wanted to hire someone else to kill me, because his coward ass couldn't even do it. As I said, Dana ain't a huntress. She's a great hider. So, after I forged her death and gave Stu a false sense of safeness, he found my sister, characterized as me, at his dirty apartment. Dee Dora, what are you doing here? He was stuttering and sweating. Just came by to talk a little about the inheritance we're about to get, my sister calmly said, perfectly mimicking my voice and intonation. Stu never knew I had a sister because she lived far away during her graduation. Both me and my husband always kept to ourselves and never had a wedding party, so our families didn't know each other very well. That's all he could say before I gagged him. He shook his head desperately, trying to deny it, but his eyes told the truth. I never fully realized it until that instant. It was a moment of clarity and I hated his guts even more. Both me and my sister did what we were best at. She hid, not wanting to see the bloodbath I was about to cause, and I stabbed and stabbed and stabbed. So let me give you an advice, if you're thinking about hiring a hitman, don't. The best one went out of business, ... And number X200B. Dora the Hitman, my creepiest target. Dora the Hitman, Hotel Rushmore. Dora the Hitman, I had to bury my client alive.
Still here? Aw, look at you. Brave little meatbag. Too late to back down now. Next story's already watching.
My friend doesn't allow anyone inside her home after 9:30 p.m. I recently found out why, by horror mode. JC and I had planned a movie night. Well, as long as the movie wasn't too long, as she never allows anyone, even me, inside her home after 9:30 p.m. I gave myself a little tour while JC went upstairs to find another movie. I was glad she was willing to watch another, that she was beginning to open up and let her friends back into her life. I guessed the boredom from all the loneliness she's been experiencing the past few years finally got to her. My eye caught a picture framed above a fireplace, of JC and her ex-boyfriend, Tyler. No one knows what happened between them. All we know is that one day they were together and the next day they weren't. After the breakup, Tyler simply disappeared and no one's seen him since. And the aftermath shows, it shows in JC's eyes. Sure. Somehow, over and despite the gore of Saw 4, she slowly drifted away into a deep sleep. I wasn't really paying much attention to the movie anyway, so that was fine. And it was about time for me to leave soon. I made my way over to the kitchen for a glass of water. I noticed the time, 9:15 p.m. I thought I better get going soon, even if JC wasn't going to wake up in the next 15 minutes. I told myself that I'd wake her before I left out of respect for her rules. I noticed a tray of cinnamon cookies on the counter and figured she wouldn't notice one missing anyway. But it was not the sound of running water that woke her up. It was my scream. What? What? She demanded to know. Call the cops, I said, someone tried to break into your house. I saw him through the window by the sink. What did he look like? I don't know. Definitely a man though. I think he was white. I'll be Phi Dash. JC finally noticed the time. Her expression suddenly turned serious and she uncrossed her arms. Oh, no, Ralph, you have to go. You have to go. Now. Fuck. Holy shit, call the cops, he's right there. JC looked back, she saw him too. A very loud and violent bang against the door rumbled throughout the house. She ran for the front door to make sure it was locked. Except, she actually ran for the front door so I wouldn't look through the peephole. Move. What are you doing? We gotta see this guy's face so we can describe him. I said. What? Move. Ralph, please. Why won't you move, JC? Isaac, do you remember that old woman? The one Tyler and I dash, she covered her right hand with the sleeve of her sweater and dried her face. The one me and Tyler visited. A very old, serious, gray-haired woman whose shoulders almost met the back of her neck. This woman lived up in a mountain, in absolute isolation. Although open-minded and always willing to listen, JC and Tyler couldn't help but laugh at the woman, who claimed to be one of the last people on Earth who knew how to practice real witchcraft. The woman did not react mercifully at their mocking and, supposedly, proved to JC and Tyler that she was in fact very real. It was a running joke that JC would tell us from time to time, even when Tyler left. They broke up immediately after meeting that old woman, but no one seriously thought that that was their reasoning. I saw the stuff of nightmares. A man on the ground, standing on all fours. That is, standing on his legs and hands, his crooked head looking up at the door, shifting fast. Shifting inhumanly fast. His eyes were pitch black, like JC's hair, and he was completely naked, with his rib cage poking against his skin. He was standing so close to the door that I was able to see every little detail. Then he, or it, opened its mouth to reveal cat-like teeth. I jumped back as it began to bang its head against the door again. She opened the door and walked outside, closing it behind herself. I looked through the peephole, then ran to the living room to get a better look through the window. She was feeding it the cookies and petting it on the head. It rubbed against her legs. She kissed it on its forehead while it consumed everything she placed in front of it. Then, in a sight that made me jump back from the window, it suddenly ran off into the woods, moving incredibly fast. Tyler always did like those cookies.
And now, as the hour gets cold, and the shadows stretch long into the corners of your room, it's time.
Yeah. Chew the spooky violin. But seriously, this next one? Even I didn't sleep after hearing it.
I've claimed something coming from you.
What? Just because I sleep in the coffin and collect cursed dolls?
Among other things. This is the final descent for the night. One last story, dragged up from the depths of the disturbed and deranged.
Go ahead. Turn off the lights. We dare you.
This is Horror Slop.
I hurt my preschool student. But I think it's what he wanted, by this wandering mind. To fully explain, I suppose I need to tell you about myself. I haven't lived a happy life. I work at a fairly shitty preschool, it's probably not a good career fit for me. I'm not as peppy or caring as my co-workers, but I feel stuck, probably due to my, self-diagnosed, anxiety and depression. My life consists of work, home, couch, weed, alcohol, any drugs I can get my hands on, which is unfortunately not as many as I'd like, sleeping at odd hours, and repeating. Days blur together and nothing really changes. Some days I feel like I'm holding back tears, and others I just feel empty. I've spent the last couple years entertaining suicidal thoughts that have only increased as time goes on. At least, they had until now. Lucas started in my classroom a week ago on Monday, July 9th. I was nervous, knowing that my comfortable, albeit exhausting, routine was about to be upheaved. The initial meeting with his father revealed that Lucas, born to abusive parents, had been recently adopted. Luckily, he didn't have any major tantrums or outbursts like I feared. Instead, he acted like he couldn't hear me, seemed incapable of cleaning up after himself, and turned away whenever I tried to talk to him. He wouldn't say a word. Fine, I was too exhausted anyway. I let him do his own thing. Besides, he seemed to prefer being left alone. On Tuesday, he started watching me closely. It was eerie. I'd turned toward him and his large, sunken blue eyes, standing out brightly against his pale, sallow skin, would be fixated on me. I started gently smiling at him, then turning away, sensing that we both preferred to be ignored. A commonality between us. I heard him speak for the first time on Wednesday. He tripped and fell on the playground, so I walked over to him. "You okay, buddy? I think you're nice. I wish you weren't so sad." He stared at the sky this time, squinting up with a pained expression. He was shorter than all the other 5-year-olds, awkwardly skinny, with protruding bones that created sharp angles over his body. Sharp, with nearly translucent skin. Looking at him too long made me uncomfortable, but at the same time it was hard to tear my eyes away. "I can feel the sad in people. Don't tell, but I know you won't." He said it with a mixture of mumbling and whispering, but I knew I heard him right. Suddenly he turned and walked away with his awkward gait, seemingly off balance, with a slight limp. The first instance happened on Thursday. Sitting at my table while the kids played, head in my hands, struggling to keep my eyes open, gently rubbing my forehead. Trying to fight the nausea and wishing I had something to ease the pain. I hadn't slept well the night before, just on and off here and there throughout the evening. Silently, our eyes met. The pain inside him was so deep, almost palpable. I was simultaneously terrified and intrigued. He gently placed his hand on mine. I could tell he was in pain. For an instant, my heart stopped. Most 5-year-olds don't know what drugs are, and I've never had anyone, adult or child, hint that they knew about my life outside of work. I hide it surprisingly well. "Lucas, I'm not sure what you're talking about, sweetie." I tried to free myself from his grip, but his nails were so deep in my skin that it tore as I pulled away, and blood trickled down my wrist. His shrill scream rang in my ears, making me feel slightly panicky. He kept screaming, at the top of his lungs, as the other children in the classroom silently gathered around, scared and confused, to watch the spectacle. All at once, I felt a rush. The feeling was indescribable, as though someone had opened up my brain and reset it. I felt clear. I don't think I'd felt that way before. ////. It's a story that is absolutely devastating the town, and made national news. A 5-year-old child with such a horrific childhood, killing himself with a gun, such a tragedy. A preventable accident. Part of me feels guilty, but I also realize that he chose me. His small, weak body held an incredible power, and he knew my life was meant to be lived. And now, thanks to him, I know it too.
And there you have it, dear listeners. One final scream, echoing into the void.
Yeah. Void screams, eternal darkness, I did it. Can I eat now?
We're still on air, Roxy.
Oh no, just the spooky FCC is gonna haunt us for breaking the mood.
If you enjoyed tonight's descent into depravity. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and what does he always say?
Stab that bell icon like it's your ex possessed by a demon. And leave a comment telling us what story made you question. I have choices.
And if you survive the night, we'll be waiting.
Same dat time, same dat crypt.
You're the reason we have complaints, you know that.
You're welcome.